Call the meeting to order. Glenn, if anyone comes on, would you invite them into the meeting, please? Good. First, we're going to have the roll call. Billy Barrick?
Here.
Lisa McLaughlin?
Here.
Taryn?
Here.
Roy here? Bruce?
Bruce Sanders here.
Sam, here.
Everyone's here. Good. Well, thank you all for coming this morning. I know you have some presentations, and I know you all need to get back to work, so I'm going to go ahead and let's get started with Still Kicking Seafood. Nate, if you could give us a little presentation of what you're doing and how we can help you.
Thank you, Roy. My name's Nathan Everett, the owner of Still Kicking Seafood in Whitestone down Windmill Point Road. We've been in business for 5 years now under the Still Kicking Seafood Incorporated name in Virginia. And as of last year, about this time, we purchased a property across the creek from where we were operating. And since then, we've been developing it, using a lot of the local infrastructure and people to help us get there, docks of the bay, self-timber, earth resources, stuff like that, to kind of do what we could as we were getting the zoning change from residential to industrial. That all came together well. We're working with a temporary dock situation now as we're waiting on a site plan. The $10,000 that's requested would be much needed and would be probably put towards the cost of that site plan immediately, which is also something the county's waiting on. So what we do is buy and sell wholesale seafood from the local watermen. A lot of that seafood is used right here in Lancaster County. It also allows the guys on the lower portion of the northern neck to be able to sell their catch direct without having to go to another county to offload it. There's not a lot of different options in this county for like wholesaling crabs. But anyway, not to take up any more of your time, if you guys have any questions.
So you'll be building a building and a facility there, is that correct?
Yes,
Or
sir.
is there one there now?
We are working out of a temporary structure, which we've been permitted for, and waiting for the site plan to continue construction of a new building, actually possibly 3 buildings.
Can you s-
And, go
Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought you were done. Please continue.
ahead. And maybe some parking.
Got it. Can you tell me a little bit more about the building? I have a unique perspective on the needs of seafood in the industry here, so I'm curious what you're offering in terms of that. I mean, in terms of beyond the local watermen and crab landing, is there going to be?
So seafood processing in general
Okay.
would be the idea. We're gonna try to be able to do as much with the landings from fish, crabs, oysters, shellfish, anything that we can to put it right in the hands of the restaurants and the local people right here. So that's gonna mean we're gonna have to do more than just wholesale. We're gonna need to be able to cut, clean, pick, and we'll need a good facility to do that. And I bounced around from several different places in the past 10 years that I've been around here, and I've tried to use older facilities, and it just doesn't seem feasible to be able to, go in and bring those places up to par or code with the cost of everything now. So starting from scratch could definitely be the way to go, I
Okay.
believe.
So this facility is going to be something that is just for Still Kicking Seafood. This isn't a community facility in so much as you guys will buy everything. Everything that comes through your facility is going to be purchased by you. You're not like going to be a hub like an Airho or something like that. Not that you'd be an Airho, but like in Jessup, where it's a hub for transportation.
Oh, yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah.
So that actually would be something we would like to entertain, maybe not definitely not to that level.
Oh, sure.
But the access to the property is something we've been discussing with the county. I was hoping Don was gonna be here to hear that part, because he could probably help with that answer. But the access to the property is going to have a lot to do with the scale that we go to as far as a hub is concerned. But we are looking to be able to get the freight trucks in there, just simply to help move the product that we're already buying and selling.
Got it. For context for the rest of the board, a lot of local seafood has to drive to, I think, Lotsburg or Kinsale in order to meet transportation, to then take it around to other distributors. So it's a 45-minute hour drive for some, well, or longer for some folks here in Lancaster County.
So that's an hour and a half there and back.
Right, yeah, one way. So a hub for transportation where an Ambry transport or Cowis could stop and grab stuff could make it much easier for local watermen to also it'll open up channels for local watermen to distribute outside of the area as well.
Totally agree, and I've done a lot of work with C&M Transportation
Okay.
recently, and that's all we're waiting for is to get access, a little bit better, stable access when it comes to the entry off of Windmill Point onto Harper's Creek. If we can get that tile or that culvert replaced, it's just going to open up a lot of doors for all the different species that we catch.
Fantastic. Does anybody else have questions? I could monopolize this conversation, so don't let me.
And Don might be able to give you more insight.
We were just speaking to the transportation needs in order to make it a local hub. So wondering what his use case would be in terms of it being a hub for freight. And he was saying that was a question for you as to whether or not his access would allow that.
If his access would allow what now?
She was asking about were we planning to make that a hub, like for drop off and pickup, so that people wouldn't have to go like to Kinsale and all. And I just told her that it was kind of pending on the access to the property, and we were kind of in works on figuring something out.
Yeah, I mean, it's, obviously, I think there's room for VDOT to approve an expanded entrance off of Windmill Point Road. I think the main issue is the width of the road that goes back to his property, and we're looking at that.
Nate, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I looked down at Little Bay now. Is any activity going on, maybe with the Obels group, maybe down at Aquin? Is there any type of seafood being purchased there, such as crabs or?
At which location?
Am I saying it like Little Bay? Am I right? That this place in Aquin,
Okay.
good deal, maybe running that property?
So there's the Diamond Creek Seafood.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that may have changed. I don't know.
Yeah, they've been recovering from a tornado.
Okay. But I was thinking there was another property out there. Am I saying it wrong? Did Obears have a property over there at one point?
Obear Seafood has worked out of with Pride of Virginia
Pride of Virginia,
of
that's it.
Whitestone. Like again, seems like they're like more of a Northumberland-based operation,
I see.
and they're a lot more focused on Menhaden specifically.
I see.
And that seems to be the trend a lot around here, is that there's a lot of species-specific places,
Sure.
whereas we're hoping to kind of open a door to the waterman as a one-stop shop. Like if you
Understood.
want to be able to sell crabs, fish, oysters, all in one place, so you can kind of deal with one buyer, and those guys can focus more on going out and utilizing the whole day to catch their product versus having to come in and worry about moving it or driving an hour and a half, to deliver it somewhere else. It's something I was kind of brought up with down in Carolina,
Understood.
having a one place to go for everything.
Understood. Yeah, because we've lost so much of that market, on our end of the county. I think with Captain Tom Seafood and
Yeah,
my
very
father-in-law
familiar.
was a waterman, so my wife, this subject is pretty near and dear to her because she went out quite a bit with her dad.
Okay.
That deal rides and so on, but I know the one time that I went with him, you had to meet the bait boat in order to be able to get your crab sold by 12 o'clock to one of these dealers, whether it be Barrack, Reynolds Seafood, or, you know, Conrad's or whatever,
Right.
you know, back in the day.
So that's still kind of a situation that we deal with in the Northern Neck, is all about, everything revolves around the freight truck.
I see.
So if everything has to come somewhere in the lower Northern Neck and then has to be transported to the upper Northern Neck, then that cuts back on the already tightly restricted hours that the watermen are having to work within. So, I mean, it has a potential to really help a lot of people.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, one other thing, going back to public, I noticed with one of our seafood places in Philmont closing, that was public, which was what, the Crab King or whatever.
Mhm.
Are you gonna be a seasonal, public, open for public business, or you plan on making it a yearly, annual business, or?
I would love to be able to stay open year-round.
I see.
Again, that kind of comes down to the access. As long as we can make sure that we can get people in and out safely, that would be our dream, is to be able to work out of one spot and deliver the service year-round.
So that means you have more employees,
Yes, sir.
you know? It's good.
As far as, I know a lot of the watermen already have established working relationships with the Kellums or,
Sure.
Purcells or whatnot like that. So how do you see your facility fitting in those dynamics? Because I know Kellums and Purcells will go to where the boats are and buy there. So
Right.
how do you fit into that
Um,
dynamic?
I'm not here to compete with the Kellums or
Sure.
Couch, any of that crowd, as
Yeah.
far as oysters is concerned. I think there's plenty of people that are in the oyster business and know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
If I need oysters, I know exactly where to go find them.
Yeah.
That's, I think they got that covered, is what I'm trying to say. So we're not really trying to get into that.
Okay, so as far as, because it just seems like they're, and that's the facet I know. I know crabbers move along, you know, through the state as the crabs move and whatnot. So I just don't know how you're going to pull in some of these local businesses that already have relationships as well, though.
Okay, can you maybe tell me a little bit more what you're,
Yeah, so I know that a lot of our watermen already have existing relationships with a number of seafood buyers or distributors. So how do you fit into that dynamic in terms of, is it there a hole here that you're filling, or are you going to be attracting some business from existing businesses? Because I know there are relationships in place, so I just don't know how you fit in.
so this all came out of a necessity for me.
Okay.
When I moved up here and started fishing, I was kind of used to that one-stop shop, being able to just focus on fishing, crabbing, oystering, whatever I needed to do and sell to one place. And that wasn't available. There's a lot of people that come down to, say, Windmill Point and dock their boats to crab or fish, and then they have to load it in their trucks and take it elsewhere. I'm right down the street. That makes it a lot more convenient. So we're able to utilize a lot more product right here in Lancaster County that way, and it's more convenient. Like I said, it gives them more time to work. That just kind of, to me, that speaks for itself.
Okay. Fantastic.
Any idea on what kind of increased employment you might be creating here?
So that's totally going to be dictated by the scale of the site plan and the accessibility to the property. As it is right now, we're looking at, I believe it was 3 buildings, Don, on the site plan?
Yes.
With a total square footage of around 20,
I don't know that.
25,000.
Okay.
How many current employees do you have?
So right now, we have 2 people that work full-time,
Okay.
and including myself, and then my wife does the paperwork.
Okay.
Is your new building up and running now?
So we're actually working under a temporary permit. We used a slab that was there after we demolished, took away the old house, and we put up coolers and ice machines and stuff on that, and that's what we're in business with. Keep in mind, we just closed on the property 11 months ago. And since then, we've also been through a pretty good battle trying to get it zoned rezoned from residential to industrial, which the county was very supportive of. But yes, that's kind of the situation we're in. We're waiting on a site plan now, which this funds that we're asking for would definitely go directly to that site plan.
He's got all of his VMRC permits in place already as well.
Any more questions? Nathan, thank you.
Thank
Very
you.
much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes?
I'm sorry.
No.
You guys have a good day.
See
All
you,
right,
Nate.
thank you. Okay, we did have a couple of changes in the agenda. The Teal Marine finally got back in touch with me just yesterday and said he's too busy, and I told him that he could reapply at a later time. The Sun Sacred Solutions said that they are working on their whole game plan right now, getting their team together, and they'd like to come back in July. Gene Price is not here yet, so let's go ahead and hear from Emily with the Risha Yoga.
Good morning. I have one printed handout. My name is Emily Dawson. Myself and my husband, who's not here because he's working for us, are the owners of Rishi Yoga and Wellness. We started serving this community about 1 year ago, almost exactly. We've been in business, licensed, insured for 3 years, but following the pandemic, we just moved here. My husband immigrated from India. That process took a long time, and we finally arrived last year. For the past year, we have been a primarily mobile business, traveling to the homes of our clients, traveling to contracted locations. We teach out of multiple locations currently. And I applied for this grant early last year, around this time, and since then our plans have changed. And at that time, I was seeking funds for advertising, marketing, some expanded licensing, but just recently an opportunity for a physical location has been offered to us. So we would now like to finally settle in one place. When we first got here, we weren't sure if this was the place for us. This is my home, and out of necessity, we came back home following the pandemic, and we didn't know what we were going to do, but within the last year, we've really created relationships here. I hope you can see through the reviews and the handouts how we've affected the community, and now we don't want to go anywhere. So this opportunity has come, and it's potentially the beginning of a very lucrative relationship, business relationship, and expanse for our business. We are in the Whitestone area. We currently serve everywhere all over the Northern Neck, but this location is in Whitestone. If you know of Body Fit, the gym, Ramona, the owner there, gave us our first chance last year to teach one class, and since then our relationship with her has grown, and she has now offered that we take over and manage all the studio and class scheduling and operations, and she would like to step back from that, handle only the gym, and give the studios to us. So within that, there are 2 studios, a small studio, a large studio, and a private back space with showers and kitchen. What we would like to do currently is take over the front small studio space and convert that into a dedicated yoga space. The second studio is more for boot camp, cardio dance, these kind of things. But to have a dedicated space for the more sacred practices, which is what we offer, My husband being from India, our teachings are extremely traditional, extremely authentic. We specialize in meditation, yoga therapy for healing. And something people don't always realize is that to have a dedicated space for that kind of practice is really important. So to kind of pop up and teach here and there, yeah, we can do fitness things, but to have a space that we can bring authenticity, bring culture into is really important for us. So the funds we are asking for, I'm currently asking for $30,000, and that will go into leasing, renovating, legal fees, and expanded licensing. And that can happen as soon as possible. The entire takeover of the studio operations of BodyFit will take effect as of January, but we would like to take that first step into the small studio now. And beyond that, within the next 5 years, BodyFit would like to completely change ownership, and we are in line for that. Thank you. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Emily, were you saying that in 5 years, you all may be posed to take over that
Yes.
operation? Okay. One thing that you mentioned, $30,000, our top limit is $10,000. I didn't know if you were aware of that. That's in our,
I wasn't aware. Looking at the past grant awards, I had seen $35,000 as the maximum given out at once in the log, the
that must have been
public
a
log.
long, it was probably a long
Broadband
time
Authority,
ago, yeah.
no.
Our-
It was
All
on
of our
the
current
EDA.
information on the Lanco VA states that it's $10,000
Okay.
is the maximum. We do not have a lot of money, unfortunately, and we try to give it
I
to.
have to ask.
Well,
I've provided a cost breakdown, so
Certainly.
you can see kind of how my mind came to that.
Sure.
But we are absolutely, whatever we are given, we will do something with. And my main motive with these funds is it's not coming to us, it's going directly back in the community, hiring local contractors, local supplies, benefiting local businesses for marketing, for advertising, for legal assistance.
So the base of your business right now is out of Body Fit, correct? Is that, what
We
percentage
teach-
is that for you?
We teach there twice a week as a contracted. Contracted, we teach there twice a week. We teach there 6 days a week, but outside of that, that's us coming in and providing a rental and a revenue split to be there. But as kind of employed, we are only there twice a week.
Emily, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Question?
I have a question about that front studio that you mentioned,
Sure. Mm-hmm.
the smaller one, and creating kind of, that environment for meditation and slower practices. When I have done classes there that are slower, there's oftentimes like loud music coming from the gym and,
Yeah.
it's.
So
I
you will
didn't-
see soundproofing
Yeah, how do you
as one
plan
of the
to
main
address
use for the funds, because we do need to soundproof that front studio.
And you think that will be pretty effective and,
Yeah,
kind of
absolutely,
damper-
because of the way the
dampening.
the back studio is more subject to the noise because you have the weightlifting machines back there, so you have the ding, ding, ding.
Mhm.
The front studio is a little more separated. We do have some road noise, but there are very large windows that can easily be
covered?
proofed with, panels and ceiling and curtains. And there's only one main door to the main studio that can also be well insulated. Sound panels can go up. So, but that is something that I need more assistance and guidance on how to do. And I'm currently looking for a local company that can provide that service.
I have one follow-up question. If you mentioned the 5-year, potential takeover of the entire property or business, would you, do you think you would plan to keep that gym aspect that is already there, or would you?
Yeah, absolutely. So
Evolve it.
currently, it wouldn't only be a takeover of the space, it would be a takeover of the BodyFit Incorporated name.
Okay.
So that's why we want to come in first only into that small studio. At first, my mind was like, oh, let's make the whole side dedicated for us, but that excludes the current market there, which is who we're currently working with. So we would like to make the front studio ours and then keep that second space and we will hire and invite other people to come in and teach out of that space, but the front space, like I said, would be for us.
Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome.
So what is, do you have a timeline for renovating the studio at this point, or is this completely fund dependent? Or grant
It's-
funding dependent?
It's funding dependent. Like I said, she is set to give us the management in January. So prior to taking that over, we would love to, within the next 6 months, get established in the front space so that we can then easily transition to taking over management of the back space.
Okay.
An independent space would be located in Lancaster County.
No, it's in Whitestone, yeah.
In Whitestone?
Lancaster, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Any other questions from the board? Emily, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We
Thank
will
you
get back
for
to
the
you at
opportunity.
the, probably by the end of the day.
Okay,
We go into a closed session in a little bit, and we'll discuss all the merits.
okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you. We need to go through this. This is,
Now, I have texted Jean Price. She had confirmed that she would be here and is a very responsible person. I have not heard back from her, so I think we should skip over and go to some of the other items on the agenda, and if, hopefully Jean will get here shortly if she's coming. I have not heard back.
Was she privy to the agenda? Because she's not scheduled to come on until 9:05. So maybe she thinks that.
That could be.
I don't know.
That
Yeah,
could be.
yeah.
I may have mentioned that to her, so.
Okay,
Good.
no problem.
All right, so we need approval of the October and January 2023 minutes of the meetings. I have gone over them and have no corrections or anything to add. Does anybody have anything to add?
No.
Okay, I make a motion that we approve the minutes.
My second.
A second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Don, the financial status report.
Mr. Chairman, you see from the report that I gave you that the checking account funds are limited right now. We're still waiting on one bond issuance administrative fee payment from Williamsburg Landing that has not been received to date, and we've sent 2 letters, and we're in the process of following up on that. But you'll see that the county bond that the EDA approved last October has the administrative fee due beginning in August of this year. I can really move that up and pay that pretty much at any time. If you all saw the need and want to grant more than what the checking account has in it, I can pay that $79.90 pretty much at any time. So you would have that additionally in the checking account right now, or in a day or two to consider for these grant requests that you have before you today. Of course, you know you have the CD. Transferred the interest from that over to the checking account back in January. You can tap into that if you would like. There are some withdrawal penalties. There is a one-time penalty-free withdrawal. So that's available to you as well. Long-term, the EDA has talked about a couple of different options, maybe going to the Board of Supervisors and requesting annual funding as so many organizations do. And we've talked about that at the board level during this budget cycle. And there's an alternative that the Board of Supervisors, I think, would prefer, and I'll get to that in a minute. We've also talked about, EDA has also talked about requesting some ARPA funds from the board You know, the ARPA funds have to be spent by December of '24, and I think there's some ideas of how to spend those remaining funds. So that brings me to the alternative that I mentioned the Board of Supervisors has talked about. Back in the 90s, the county sold about a couple hundred acres of what was called the Poorhouse Tract to the Audubon Society. It's located on Regina Road. It's the site of the Hickory Hollow Nature Trail. The money from that sale was put into a fund, we call it the Poorhouse Tract Fund, and it was earmarked for economic development, but it's never been used, and that money is sitting there. Currently, there's $338,776.24 in that account. In brief conversations during this year's budget session, the Board of Supervisors has said that, you know, perhaps that money could be funneled to the EDA, you know, probably not all at once, but in segments to assist the EDA with their grant, you know, process in the future. There has been talk that the board would like to see some criteria established, you know, particularly if you're going to exceed or expand the $10,000 limit. They'd like to see some criteria established with that, so that, you know, they would know how this money is being spent. Because, you know, it sounds like a lot of money, 330,000, but if you all put a cap on 4 grant requests per meeting, and right now it's a cap of 10,000. So if you all granted 40,000 4 times a year, that's 160,000. You could wipe that out in 2 years. So, you know, I think the board would like to see some criteria moving forward for grant requests, but that money is there earmarked for economic development, and it's separate from the general fund, so it would not affect, you know, our general operating budget, which is what we're going through the process of approving now for FY24. So that's a long-range possibility for funding for the EDA. Of course, we always have the possibility of bond issuances each year, but they seem to be few and far between unless the county, you know, does one. And basically, short-term, as I said, if the EDA thinks that, you know, more than 9,000 is needed for this round of grant requests, then I can have that $79.90, you know, paid and deposited quickly.
Don, what have you heard from Williamsburg Landing? That's, what, $11,000?
It's about 11,000. Of course, those figures drop a little bit each year because it's 1/8 of 1% of the outstanding balance. And, you know, there's a lot of staff changes in various organizations, and, you know, I don't want to, you know, throw anybody under the bus, of course. You know, it could be that they've sent a check, it's got lost. It could be that it got here, it got put into a different account. But we need to know that, you know, they paid it first before we take the step of looking for it, you know, see if it got misplaced here. So that's where
So
we're at.
we really haven't heard from, I mean, it's been, what, almost 6 months?
Yeah, have not heard, haven't checked with Betty this morning to see, as of last Friday or Monday, whenever I put this together, it had not been received then.
That would be nice to have in the kitty right now.
It would be.
Down to $9,000 or
Yeah.
so? Yeah.
Don, I'd like to ask for clarification.
Mm-hmm.
So the Board of Supervisors wants to see criteria in general, or criteria for grant requests in excess of $10,000?
I think criteria in general.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I think this is, well, I don't necessarily love our criteria. We do have criteria, and I think this, going a little off topic here, so our financial report represents kind of the state of the relationship with the EDA and the Board of Supervisors, and that they don't know that. And we've been discussing criteria for the last.
No, they do know that, but, you know, well, let me rephrase, I'll go back and say both. If you're going to grant something more than $10,000, you know, at least one board member has made the comment that, you know, $10,000 for a startup business, you know, is great, but it's really not going to make a whole lot of difference. And so if you know, decide to put more money out there, they want to see the criteria that you're going to use to bump that up.
Okay,
So we should make a presentation to the Board of Supervisors.
Either that or come up with some criteria that I can share with the board so they can see that, you know, you've got some metrics that you're going to follow and that they're okay with that and, you know,
So
that money could be transferred quickly
Yeah.
as well.
we have made larger grants, obviously, in the past.
Yeah.
I think the board's aware of the fact that we gave $30,000 to the Broadband Authority
Yeah.
to help them get started and get that survey out, which was
Yeah.
which was huge. They got
Yeah.
something like a 27% response from the survey.
It was, and that doesn't sound very high, but that is high for a survey. I mean, it
Yeah,
was.
usually
yeah. 6
or 7%,
Yeah.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It was very, very well received, and, you know, if everything stays on schedule, APB should have the fiber deployed in the county by the end of December this year.
yeah, that's wonderful. As you know, we only have 6 members now, but I'm talking to 3 different people, and I will talk to the board and give a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors. These are 3 concerned citizens for the county.
Okay.
I think they would make a good addition. Does anybody else have any suggestions? Anybody that's inquired
I
of
have
you?
one person.
This is an at-large position,
at-large.
so
It
it
is
can be
at-large.
from any party.
Oh, okay, I was just
Yeah.
clarifying it's at large.
So it
I
can
have
be,
one
it can
person
be
who's
from any
interested.
one of the 5 districts.
I have,
Gabe Del Rio said he has responsibilities. He couldn't do it. I was hoping that Gabe would be a member because he's written a lot of grants in his past. And a grant writer, you know, maybe we could go to the state EDA, try to get state funds from, but we need a good grant writer.
Yeah.
So you know, Gabe still may give us a little bit of his time just on the side.
Yeah.
Because I'd love to get some state funds too. We've always been proud to say that we haven't used any of the county's money to give money out, but as you know, with the bond market now, we're
Yeah.
just not getting any income.
Yeah.
And we need to get you know, we had talked about different, well, when Charlotte was on the board, we talked about angel funding and everything else. You know, we're looking at philanthropists and things like that, but I think state funding and grant writing would be a better way to go.
Yeah.
so I think that leads in, I thought that was gonna be agenda items, those that I don't.
That will be, I'm getting a little bit off track.
Okay, okay.
But it has to do with financial stuff.
Right, right, because I
Okay.
was, okay. Just didn't know if we were going into that at this time or not.
Okay. Do we have any more questions of Don? Don, do we need to make a motion to approve the
No,
Okay.
it's just information purposes.
General
All
question
right.
for Don, are we still good at July for the new, your help?
I will tell you that the person who was selected for that position, we had negotiated with, it was going to start July 1st, and I was informed last month that that person has now changed their mind, so they're not going to be joining us, and so now I'm going back to the second and third choices and trying to negotiate with those. So,
Thank you, Don. I'm going to take 1 second and make sure that I've got Gene Price's correct, that I text the correct number. And it appears that I did. I hope nothing has happened because I know Gene's very responsible. I did go to Gene's facility. This is the old farm truck. And I looked at the project that she is proposing, and I think it would be fantastic for the community. I didn't realize the back of her building has a very large unfinished space that with some of the funding from the improvements for the Whitestone revitalization and some of the funding from the landlord, they would like to take over that huge space. And also the landlord is going to take down the metal building that's next to theirs and put up a pavilion there that would be for the whole community, and that would help her business tremendously also. So I will talk to Jean, and hopefully she will come back to us in July. When I had the meeting with her, actually Jack Larson, one of the previous Board of Supervisors, showed up because Jean's brother had a stroke that morning and unfortunately died the week after, so she's been under a little duress from that too, and that was just a couple weeks ago. So let's move forward. Let's have the closed meeting, and If anyone participating remotely would like to make a comment, please click on the raise your hand icon located near the button, the bottom of your computer screen, or press *9 on your telephone. When you're unmuted, state your name and district which you live and make your comment. No one's on? Okay, good. Okay. I move that the Lancaster County Economic Development Authority enter into a closed meeting for a grant request per sections 2-2.2-3711-A.6 of the Code of Virginia 1950 as amended for the specific discussion or consideration of the investment of public funds where competition or bargaining is involved and where, if made public, the financial interest of the government unit would be adversely affected. So we are now in a closed meeting. I move that the Lancaster County Economic Development Authority adopt the following certification resolution. Whereas the Lancaster County Economic Development Authority convened in a closed meeting on April 20th, 2023, pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote on the motion to close the meeting to discuss grant proposals in accordance with Section 2.2-3711.A.6 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the EDA that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the County Economic Development Authority hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the meeting to which the certification applies. Before a vote is taken on this resolution, is there any member who believes that there was a departure from the requirements of number 1 and number 2? And if so, identify yourself and state the substance of the matter and why, in your judgment, it was a departure. Okay, hearing no statement, I call the question. Vote, Mr. Carter, I certify. Mrs. Bryce Rowland,
I certify.
Mr. Sanders,
I certify.
Ms. McLaughlin,
I certify.
Mr. Rice,
I certify.
Mr. Barrick.
I certify.
This certification resolution is adopted. We are now in open meeting. So the next thing to discuss is the grant requests that have come before us. The grant request for the Still Kicking Seafood. Would anyone make a motion?
I make a motion that we grant an item $10,000 for Still Kicking Seafood.
I second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next item is the Rishi Yoga. Any further discussion or any motions?
I motion that we grant them a $5,000 grant with the caveat that it's used for their lease.
That it's used for their lease?
Yes.
Okay. I will second that motion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 None opposed? Good. Okay, other business and community updates. I know, Taryn, you had some ideas that sounded good and we need to talk about.
Sure. So I reached out to the Northern Neck Planning District Commission, and they have a loan program of their own. And I was thinking about it and reached out, and turns out that they offer administration of loans for municipalities as well. So in theory, we could start to grant loans to local businesses, kind of the same model we have now. And what they do, they collect interest on the loans, and the interest goes back into the pool as part of their fund expenses and whatnot. So I think it could be an interesting thing for us to use to, at least where we have limited funds, we could put money back into the community and keep recouping it, and then use some of a low interest rate, but some interest rate to kind of refund and grow what we have available to us as well.
So are you saying these funds would come out of the corpus of the money that we have?
Could come out of, whatever, yes, it could come from the CDs, it would be very small in that case. The Poor Man's Fund, ARPA money, if we make those requests, we could
Oh,
fund
you're
it.
saying use them as a loan instead of a grant?
Yes,
That's what you're saying?
yes, and then maybe the interest could go back to the grant fund. So,
Okay.
it'd be a
So
way
it's
of
like we're kind of slowly building a little extra
slowly
cash
building a little
on
extra
the
cash.
loans.
Yep,
But we would be giving that money away for a while until it got paid back, and then we wouldn't have it, right?
correct, yep. But you could do shorter terms, you
I
could
guess
do
we're
1
giving
year.
it away anyways, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the alternative is there's nothing coming in. But this would be a way to
Well,
use that money.
The concept sounds good to me on paper.
Yeah.
However, I don't think that I would not want to start getting into the loan business. As a
Are we able
county authority,
Are we able to do that?
if they cannot get a loan from the
Yeah.
bank, then there's a reason that they can't, and that would be that they.
Well, you
that they-
you get into issues of security for the loan.
Right.
Exactly.
Payment of the loan, non-payment of the loan, enforcement, and lots of paperwork involved.
Well, I mean, NNPDC handles that
Don, you'd laugh,
administration.
wouldn't you?
No, NNPDC handles the administration,
I-
all of the loan paperwork.
Can we just send the clients to the NNDC? Can we send them to the planning partnership and have them just work it out with them?
In theory, yes, but
Since
they
they're
don't
in
have
the-
funding, that was the, right, but there's minimal funding.
Well,
be
we
like
have
a part-
less
it'd
than
be
they
like
do,
a
I think, probably. So I would not want to get into the banking business as an authority. I think what we do is to help support businesses with the money that we do have, and evidently with grant requests and everything that we may submit to the state and also to the county and everything. I think we would have a better use of that money. I see what you're saying about
Yeah.
the interest coming back to us, and even them doing all the administrative, I don't think that we should be a loan partner to small businesses.
I think the idea is not that they are ineligible for getting loans from banks, they would go through a vetting process. The idea is it would be at a lower interest than banks, so they do a 3% rate. So that would incentivize good businesses to go there. We wouldn't have to give loans. This is kind of like the angel fund. This is exactly what an angel fund is, essentially. It would just be us administering our own. Well, it's not exactly, but it is the same concept behind it. And us putting up the funds for it. But if there is not,
I like
I
the
just want
idea,
voice.
but I'm not sure, yeah, I kind of agree on the administration piece, sounds very complicated.
Yeah, and it would also put us at risk. As Bruce said, they've got securities and other things to collateralize the loan and things like that. And new startup businesses are risky, oftentimes risky. And we've had requests that have come to us that, I know we had granted $500 to somebody and thought maybe they could get some business courses from that. And 3 weeks later, they were out, and they'd asked for $40,000.
Yeah.
We just can't get into, I don't think we should be in the business of loaning money at a low interest rate through the planning partnership. I think it's a great idea, but I just don't think as an administrative body, we need to go there. Or as a county authority, we need to go there.
okay, I was just gonna recommend that we talk to the NNPDC so they could explain and we could ask questions
Sure.
of how it could work to see if the model they have, because if other municipalities and other EDAs are doing this, I mean,
If they are, we should talk to them.
Yeah.
I mean, he's told me that
You
other
know, see.
municipalities are doing this.
Yeah.
John Bateman did, so it's not a brand new concept by any stretch, and that's why I was just hoping could
Yeah, we should
entertain
do
the
that.
idea, because
Yeah, we should look
I-
into it more.
all of the concerns here are completely valid. I just think it's worth asking someone who knows how it works to see if those concerns are addressed by how they administer the program.
Okay. Yeah, we can explore, see what's happened in other counties and everything. But I would be adverse to getting into loaning money. We have such little money to give. I would rather support businesses coming to us and giving us the story and vetting them and going through that whole process and giving them some seed money at no interest. And hopefully they'll come back with metrics for us. As a matter of fact, just this past week in the Rappahannock Record, we got a nice plug. I would also like to thank the Lancaster Economic Development Authority for its support of this new venture, and that was the money that we gave Dug In Farms, just their last thing. And when you read the whole article, it's about what they're planning to do with the money, and I think that's great. It's a good measurable, but young businesses start, I was in a young business, and I couldn't borrow money from anybody, because I had no, I was young, I didn't have any money, and just started in the garage. And it's tough for small businesses. and some of them are willing to work it, the 60 to 80-hour weeks, year after year, get their business started. That's what it takes. So we have to know their passion. We have to know, and obviously this young man that came to us today, Nathan, looks like successful.
Yep.
And is going through the whole county process of doing something that's going to be good for the whole community.
Understood.
And with the limited money we have, we just gave him $10,000. I think it's great.
Right, and I think that would be actually a great candidate for a loan, because as somebody with $2 million in revenue, it is, I think he has the potential and the opportunity to pay it back as opposed to, or the means to pay that money back at some point, as opposed to a startup. So that's more
Well,
of, I
with
think it
with
opens
his-
up an avenue for us to serve different facets of the community, so startups versus established businesses. But
Yeah, he's-
I don't want
he's
to
a
belabor
builder.
the
I think
point.
we could
He's
lend,
building.
I think if we could lend more than just the small amounts, I mean,
Right.
I would say if I had a $2 million business and I was trying to expand and I had to go and borrow money to pay interest on it, is it worth it to go through that exercise for $10,000 to borrow money? When you go to the bank and you borrow, I don't know, $75,000, $80,000, $100,000
Sure.
to actually do something. But a grant is a different story. You come in, you get the money, it's yours, you spend it, it's done, it's over. It's worth going through the effort to get something like that. But
Don, as far as the ARPA request.
maybe if we had a lot more money, that would make some sense to establish that and the bureaucracy involved to do it. But
As far as
Maybe
the
we could
ARPA
turn that over to
requests-
the county.
What's that? What's that?
No, I'm trying to not create more work for Don. As far as those ARPA requests, what level of funding is the county typically giving people that make those, is it,
Say that again? What?
as far as the ARPA requests go,
Mhm.
what level of funding is the county allocating to those requests typically?
They vary. I think the smallest one that has come in has been 10,000, and the largest one has been like 35. But
Okay.
we've
All right.
got, the county has some items kind of earmarking that money for.
Okay,
And, we got a little over 2 million in ARPA funds. We've spent, I think, close to 600,000 of that, basically on broadband deployment. And the balance of it, I think we've got, earmarked for it. But that Poorhouse Tract Fund was earmarked for economic development. It's been sitting there for over 20 years. And it's outside of the general fund, which does not affect their general operating budget. And I think that's the direction the Board of Supervisors would like to go. They just like to see, something on paper. This is how we're going to, critique these things and how we're going to determine how much we're going to give them.
sure. So I
So-
think that kind of leads in, to how do we make the EDA more sustainable? So one of the other items I'd wanted to ask about for today's meeting was a strategic planning session outside of this meeting where we could start to focus on the sustainability, coming up with a strategy that aligns with Lancaster 2035 and the board's vision, and then focus on being more sustainable. We keep talking about needing more money, but we're not coming up with avenues for coming up with new money or meeting the needs of the community. So I think we actually need to put in a little extra time to work on that.
Strategic planning meeting. Now, if we do that, Don, do we have to advertise that if we're having more than 4 people at a meeting at one time?
Yeah, we would advertise it on the website, and that's all. You wouldn't be granting any grant requests at that meeting, so,
Right.
it would just be a special call meeting.
But it would be considered an official meeting?
It would be an official meeting if you have 4 or more members. Now, if you want to meet, with less than 4, then you could do that at will. But if you're going to meet with 4 or more, it's an official
I
public
think it's a
meeting.
good idea. I think
Yeah.
that, this is my second year and I've kind of gotten a feel for how we're doing grants, but I agree that even if we find more funding, that's just sort of this one piece. And unless we say, and I think Lancaster 2035 has really identified, some important levers in our community to work on, and we can align with some of those, you know, pretty well. So I would love to have a little more, from a strategic perspective, a little more clarification on, you know, who and how much we're giving grants out for, and then I would love a follow-up process, even if it's just a report,
Yeah.
not necessarily that, you know, they're in trouble if they spend the money slightly differently, but
Yeah.
it would be really interesting to say, come back to us in a year and tell us how you spent that money and give us some pictures and, you know, show us an update. I would love to just kind of collate a lot of what we're doing into, you know, not marketing, but like, you know, pull those pieces together to be like, this is the fruits of our dollars and our efforts. And then as you have like towns like Whitestone doing a big revitalization and putting a lot of other dollars in there, you can kind of see how the EDA plays into those things.
Yep.
And I think that really, we're a good body to do that. So I think that gives us a little more influence there.
Yep, absolutely. And I think this, what I'd recommend for this session is either engage the Board of Supervisors in it, make it a joint meeting with them, or the group, the sitting board of 2035. Or all, or both groups, just to make sure we are truly aligned with the direction. At least I think the Board of Supervisors is probably more important, but especially if they want to see criteria, let them also give feedback on criteria.
Well, assuming that we have a seventh member sometime soon, to try to get 7 people together, 5 supervisors, all at one time.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Stein can tell you,
Shouldn't be a
we
problem,
do
right?
the polls to try to see
That's not
who's
gonna happen.
there. Like 2035,
But-
it's
Yeah,
hard to get everybody
Yeah, like
together, but I
2035.
think it's a good idea to have a
Yeah.
strategic session and go over what Lisa was just saying, going over what you're just saying.
Sure.
And get ideas and also hopefully get some more funding. And perhaps, I know with children and with business and everything else, we might have to do this 5 to 7 and have heavy appetizers after work, but that will pack kids at home and things, and,
One-
but it
one
might
day
have
would
to
be
be
okay.
after work. You know, Bruce, this time of year, let's see, boats have to be in the water, his after work's probably 10 o'clock at night, so. You know, it's gonna be hard to get us all together, but I think it's a really good idea. And perhaps if we can't get everybody together, we could get 3 together, so it's not an official meeting, discuss things, and then one person from that can get together, another 2 other people, and just trade ideas, and then come back with a meeting. You know, we could do it at the coffee shop.
Well, or we could do some pre-work too among these groups, these couple groups.
If we
Maybe
send
putting
out-
like a brainstorming document together and then kind of refining it, maybe talking with the Board of Supervisors offline about that. And then when we have a meeting, we're kind of just, you know, we're not starting from scratch. It's not a retreat weekend, right?
Yeah.
So
It's actually
if we
a
send out
productive meeting
emails,
then.
Don, amongst the group, that's not considered a meeting.
No.
We can discuss
Yeah.
what items we would like to discuss, set an agenda, and just try to make it an informal meeting at some time and get a consensus of who can come. But we'll already have some ideas out there and already have, you know, hopefully some good discussion points.
Would anybody object to trying to set this maybe 2 months in advance and then invite the Board of Supervisors? And if they can make it, great. If not, I mean, at least we've invited
Even
liaisons.
if we get some people, that's helpful, right? Because we can
Right.
get their feedback and their,
Yeah, but
Absolutely.
I would suggest they would probably only send 2, so it would not be an official meeting for them.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
I said I would suggest if the Board of Supervisors is involved, they're probably only going to send 2 members, so it's not an official meeting for them.
That's
Sure.
perfect.
So,
Okay.
you know, we can get Jerry Davis and John Bateman to come before the EDA and make a presentation, you know, answer questions on this loan program as well. I don't know whether you'd want to do that at a special meeting or at your July meeting, but we can do that. And, you know, I think as far as tapping into some of that poorhouse tract money, I think, you know, just the EDA just needs to come up with some criteria. These are the bullet points that we're going to look at for larger amounts and, you know, show that to the Board of Supervisors. And, you know, they trust you all's judgment. And if, you know, they see it and they like it, I think they'll, you know, authorize me to transfer some money over. So,
Yeah, let's go for the low-hanging fruit first, the 300 grand.
Yeah, well, like I said, I don't know if they would,
Then strategically, we could figure out how to spend it.
yeah, so yeah, I mean, if you're talking about a special meeting with 4 or more, you know, as Roy said, it's always tough to get many people together. You know, whatever you want to try to do.
Okay. Well, let's try to, or let's not try, let's send email blasts to all other members of the board and come up with some ideas. If each of us could say, you know, maybe we could, this would be a good discussion point, and then we can try to set a meeting within the next 2 months that as many of us could make, and then we'd have to do an advertisement that we're meeting. Are there any
So
times that would
we
be
could set up a
better?
retreat at the homestead.
There you go.
I like the way you think.
Of course,
We don't
that's
pay
a little
ourselves
better.
We got
anymore,
300
Bruce.
grand, right?
You don't have it yet.
Or the islands. Okay.
You know, and I just remembered that last year we did split off into groups, and I don't think we ever followed up on it, but I started a Google document for whatever the group, the communications piece,
Yes,
and I know I put some things in there, so we could even start with something like that,
sure.
brainstorming, and then put it into some sort of format. You know, if we could build a strategic draft, a strategic plan draft, that would probably be a good place to start,
Yeah.
after we get some ideas going.
After we get, after some ideas. Yeah, do we
Well,
want to, as far as, I mean, going back, Don mentioned bringing in John or Jerry to the July meeting. I think that's probably too soon. I think we should reserve our spare time for the July meeting to work on the strategic plan, and whatever follow-up. Do you guys agree? Because it might be that per our strategic plan, the group doesn't want to go that route, even, like, we come up with a different financing plan. So I would suggest waiting on that.
Yeah. And Don, are you aware of any state funding for EDAs that,
I am not,
okay. Well,
you
I'm,
know, not to say it's not out there, I'm just not aware.
right. Well, I will, Jeff knows some of the people in Danville, and I do too, and I'm gonna, they've been very, very successful.
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk to them. I know somebody that's very instrumental
Yeah.
in economic development down there, and she is a tour de force. I mean, to tell you, she gets it done, so.
That
I'll
would be a
talk to her
really
and see.
she would be interesting to
Yeah.
bring in. That's a really interesting story of what they've done over there.
Yeah.
Maybe we could get Caesar to build a
should be a secret.
casino out here, Don.
Oh, God, no.
I'm not opposed to that.
Community meetings, I can only imagine. My only other update that I had for this meeting was I believe I'm being nominated Monday to join Go Virginia's regional council. So I'll be also a representative voice,
Go Virginia.
for Go Virginia, to, you can speak to the opportunities there, and I think that might be a point for our strategic plan, just as, to see if we can all identify some kind of economic development opportunity that we could engage in to speak to the greater landscape. Love adding work to people's plates.
Well, if any of us know someone that is involved in a business that has had to apply for loans, or a friend that might be involved with something having to do with government or raising money, reach out to them, if you would, and just say, you know, this is what we're up against, and do you have any suggestions? And we can put that in the email blast to each other and come up with good ideas.
Do we want to circle back to the board nominations, Roy? To discussing candidates?
Oh, yeah, we can, Gabe had recommended 2 people that he thought might be interested, and I have someone that I've only talked to once, but he's a concerned citizen, and good background and everything. I'll send out names, and if you all have any names that you think might be good, let me know. We need to submit that to the Board of Supervisors for approval. So I want to get a strong candidate, and, you know, Jeff, we lost a big asset when Jeff left, because he knows so much about the community and so much about businesses here. And his business obviously has been very successful. So there are a lot of tentacles that we sort of lost, but Jeff and I are still in conversation about different things. As a matter of fact, we had a talk about the poorhouse tracks. I wanted to get a little bit more information about that, but you supplied that today. We've talked about that at some of the 2035 meetings, and that's been brought up before, so. It's nice to know that we may have a cushion that we can tap into, because funding is crucial for what we do. I mean, Don's gonna have to advance us some money so we don't dip into the CD just to give out what we have today.
Well, I'm gonna research what's involved with, cashing that CD in, and, it wasn't in the minutes about, taking half of it, but I know you all discussed that at the last meeting, I think, so, and I'll bring that back at the July meeting to,
And we'll see
for
what,
a
I mean,
decision.
if we can get 5.25% instead of 3.05, or if we can get
Yeah.
4.75, or, anything that would help.
Yeah.
It might only be another $200 a year, but it's $200 we don't have now, so
Yeah,
maybe $500 a year.
Absolutely. As
We
far as
need every penny we get.
yeah.
going back to candidates, is there any, I think it'd be good to talk quickly about, we have a 10:30 adjournment, so we still have time. What we're looking for in candidates, right? I would love, that way we can all, I think it sometimes helps people to think of candidates if there's, going back to criteria, that they can put to a face or a name as well. So, I would love to see someone who is heavily involved in one of our local business associations, like the chamber or something like that. So somebody that could be the voice of local businesses for,
In those
I think, the
groups.
community. Yeah, I mean, I have someone, I don't know if we are abstaining from saying names out. I haven't talked to this person, so I won't say it and put her name on public record. But I do have someone in mind that I think could speak for local businesses. But I think that's ultimately something I think we lack today, because I think folks here
I think from the
are sole
chamber.
proprietors, yeah.
I'm on the IBBA board, but
Yeah.
it's a smaller group.
Right, yep.
Yeah, I've been going to some of the chambers functions. They do it once a month.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll
Me
be
too.
there, I think it's 27th next week.
Over in Irvington.
Yeah.
And I went to the last one, at the last time we had a meeting, Albert Pollard came to us and wanted to get a refuel subsidy, basically, to put in infrastructure for car charging. And we did not give it to him, and he was not too happy. He said, now, if the board doesn't do infrastructure, and so we sat down and had a talk. I went over and saw his operation, which is really a cool operation. He's doing a cafe, and chances are he'll probably come back to us with a request for giving some money towards the cafe he's building there. I mentioned to him, I said, we have very limited funds. It didn't serve a large market. It wasn't going to create another employee for charging. And basically, it was to his advantage only to try to sell. He's got 6 places there, and it's a very, very cool concept. If you haven't seen it, you ought to go see it. But I said, we gave $30,000, which is way above our maximum, to Broadband Authority, because that is infrastructure. That is so critical. And, we do everything we can, and we just didn't feel that this request met the criteria of infrastructure. One charger, it's not going to do anything, and it's also out of the way. No one can find it. You can't put signage on the road, hey, there's a charger down the street. So, Albert and I had a good discussion. He's, he was a past legislature.
Delegate in the
He was
House
a
of
delegate,
Delegates,
yeah. And had good broad support, and I think did a great job. He's got good ideas, but we had a good discussion, so he's not as upset as he was before.
Interestingly, voted against the road tax proposal, which would have benefited Lancaster County back, this has been 15 years ago. It was one of the deciding votes that defeated it. It was something that we took up there, and the Senate approved it, and what it would have done is given counties more authority, more latitude in how they could structure the tax, so that each county could set up their taxes according to how it would benefit them. Not one size fits all with both hands turned, tied behind your back. They voted against that, so.
Okay.
Anyway, life goes on.
Do we have any other business to discuss?
Your next meeting is Thursday, July 20th, next regularly scheduled meeting, Thursday, July 20th at 8:30 here. So,
Well, thank you all for coming. We had not only a quorum, we had a full house.
Had a
today.
full
Thank
house,
you.
yeah, that's-
Sam, thanks.
that's
Bruce.
great.
Yeah, Karen, Lisa, Billy,
Yeah.
thank you all. Thanks for the input.
And 20,
Crystal, thanks for doing the minutes.
Thank you for doing
Thank you
notes.
That's
very
very
much.
important. We really appreciate it. I know how busy you are. Glenn, thanks.
Could I speak with you just a quick second?
yeah, Roy, I'm gonna get you to sign this.
Okay.
Okay. Tell me when.
Yes. Or can
I
we
could-
actually
I
make a
could-
motion to adjourn? I motion to adjourn.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.